A possible scenario in which a conservative debates a liberal on the topic of gun control is as follows. Conservative: thank you for joining me in this debate. I believe that the right to bear arms is a fundamental right that is protected by the Constitution and essential for self-defense and liberty. I oppose any attempts to restrict or regulate this right by the government. Liberal: I appreciate your perspective, but I disagree with your position. I believe that gun violence is a serious problem that causes thousands of deaths and injuries every year in this country. I support reasonable and common-sense measures to reduce gun violence, such as universal background checks, banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, and enforcing existing laws. Conservative: I think you are misguided in your arguments. The problem is not guns, but criminals and mentally ill people who misuse them. Law-abiding citizens should not be punished or deprived of their rights because of the actions of a few. The best way to prevent gun violence is to deter criminals by arming more people, not less. The Second Amendment clearly states that the right to bear arms shall not be infringed, and the Supreme Court has affirmed this right in several cases. Liberal: I think you are mistaken in your interpretation of the Second Amendment and the Supreme Court rulings. The Second Amendment was written in the context of a militia system that is no longer relevant today. The Supreme Court has also recognized that the right to bear arms is not absolute and can be subject to reasonable regulation by the government. The evidence shows that more guns lead to more violence, not less. Countries that have stricter gun laws have lower rates of gun deaths and injuries than the United States. Conservative: I think you are ignoring the facts and the reality of the situation. The United States is a unique country with a diverse population and a long history of gun ownership and culture. You cannot compare it to other countries that have different circumstances and values. The evidence also shows that gun laws do not work, as criminals will always find ways to obtain guns illegally, while law-abiding citizens will be left defenseless. Gun laws only create more victims, not less. Liberal: I think you are clinging to a false and dangerous ideology that puts profits over people and ideology over evidence. You cannot deny that gun violence is a public health crisis that affects millions of Americans every year. You cannot ignore that mass shootings have become a regular occurrence that terrorize our communities and schools. You cannot justify that easy access to guns contributes to suicides, domestic violence, and accidental deaths. Gun laws can save lives, not take them away. Conservative: I think you are infringing on our freedom and security by advocating for gun control. You cannot trust the government to protect us from harm or tyranny. You cannot expect criminals to obey the law or respect our rights. You cannot rely on the police to respond in time or prevent crime. You can only depend on yourself and your own firearm to defend yourself and your family. Gun rights are human rights, not privileges. Liberal: I think you are endangering our society and democracy by opposing gun control. You cannot value guns over lives or rights over responsibilities. You cannot promote violence as a solution or fear as a motive. You cannot ignore the will of the majority or the voice of the victims. You can only respect the common good and the rule of law by supporting sensible and effective gun control measures. Gun safety is common sense, not oppression. Conservative: I guess we have to agree to disagree on this topic.